Bike derailleurs have been cable actuated since day one, but within the past few years, electronic shifting has emerged onto the market. SRAM recently released their AXS drivetrain, which is not only electronic, but also wireless, being the first of its kind. So what happens when you combine little robots and derailleurs? Do you get a better shifting drivetrain, or is this purely just another solution for a problem that never existed? I'm Mike from the Lost Co, and in this video, I'm gonna tell you why I think this is actually pretty sweet. Now, before we do get into things, I just wanted to say that I already know that there's going to be quite a bit of low-key hate comments on this video saying that this AXS group set is straight up just overpriced mountain bike gear aimed directly at dentists. Well, keep in mind through this video that AXS is top shelf stuff. It is designed to be the best shifting drivetrain on the market, and the price reflects that. This is a straight up premium mountain bike setup. Also, yes, there is a chance that your battery might die while you're bike packing through the Arctic Circle or something, but don't worry, I'll explain how that works too. All right, let's jump into things. I've spent 6 months now on the Eagle AXS X01 group set, and I can definitely say that this stuff shifts better than anything I've ever used before. Since the little servo motor here in the derailleur is programmed to shift perfectly, no joke, every single shift is perfect. Plus, while you're really mashing on the gears, it shifts extremely well under load, just like any of the other SRAM Eagle group sets. But with AXS, everything is programmed to shift over perfectly into the gear that you're trying to get into, so that there's no risk of you accidentally pushing the shifter over a little bit farther than you wanted to and going halfway up into another gear. Then you kind of get a little bit of a clunk or a little bit of a miss-shift when you're climbing. But with AXS, it's programmed to not do that, so there is no miss-shifting, and it shifts just perfect all the time. My favorite feature of the AXS derailleur is the overload clutch. Now, this is basically just a built-in protection mode. Typically, if you smash your derailleur into a rock or something, then you will at least bend your derailleur hanger and, worst case scenario, bend the hell out of your derailleur. With AXS, the derailleur's motor disengages upon impact, and it allows it to move freely. After a couple seconds, the derailleur automatically moves back into position on the gear that you shifted into. This has come in handy for me a ton of times, especially riding in Whistler. When riding through rocky tech trails, I definitely heard a little bit of a zip zip going on with my little robot back there, when I could obviously feel that I smashed my derailleur into something. As you can see, my derailleur has some scars, and I even broke part of it off, but still this thing is straight as an arrow and has therefore been more reliable than my cable actuated X01 derailleur, which is awesome because XX1 is their lighter duty line. The difference between XX1 and X01 derailleurs is that the X01 uses an aluminum outer cage, whereas the XX1 uses a carbon fiber outer cage, saving you just a couple grams. Therefore, typically, people that are straight up bashing on their bike riding enduro or very aggressively will go with the XX1 choice, since the aluminum outer cage will be a little bit more reliable and tougher than the carbon cage on XX1. Although, like I said, I've been riding this XX1 stuff in the bike park quite a bit, smashing on things, and it's been great. Not very important, but worth noting, the XX1 derailleur is more of like a dark gray black color, whereas the X01 is a lighter gray color. These derailleurs are also super sealed from the elements. They're IP69K rated. I don't know how much this is actually true, but I was told at one point that the engineers working on this had it on their bike, and every single day when they drove home from work, they had to stop at a car wash and spray it down with a pressure washer. Well, it obviously worked if that's true, because I've been riding this thing in the rain and mud tons of times, spraying it with the hose, and it's been non-stop perfect. Also, AXS derailleur cages are 10 millimeters shorter than the cable actuated ones, meaning I've had less total hangups on trailside sticks. Overall, I'm extremely happy with how my XX1 AXS has outlasted my X01 cable actuated derailleur. Also, last but not least, this drivetrain's freaking quiet, bud. All you hear is a little zip come from the derailleur, but when your tires are on dirt, you can't really hear it. Also, I never really noticed how loud a cable shifter is until I went AXS. And the new shifter, or quote-unquote controller as SRAM calls it, is virtually silent and has only one small click. Plus, shifting is so perfect that when this drivetrain is cleaned and lubed properly, there's virtually no noise coming from the drivetrain when you're pedaling and shifting around. You absolutely get what you pay for when you go AXS. With AXS, you will now refer to your shifter as a controller because there's just two buttons that you click and they control which way your derailleur moves. Honestly, I didn't really like the controller all that much when I first got it because it's entirely ergonomically different than a regular cable actuated shifter. The controller has a shift paddle which tilts up and down, so there's a button at the top and bottom. You place your thumb right in the middle of the tilt paddle and nudge it up or down, and with the AXS phone app you can control which button shifts which way. I have mine set up so that the top button shifts the derailleur into a harder gear and the bottom button shifts it into an easier gear. At first I was always resting my thumb in the middle of that paddle, and when I was riding super rough trails I was noticing that I was just getting like jolted around a lot. Sometimes I would cause the derailleur to kind of just shift all over the place. But after a few days of riding on this stuff, I quickly realized that I didn't need to just hold my thumb on there when I'm riding through rough stuff, and that I could just keep my hands on the bars and it shifts so fast I could just boop, shift it whenever I wanted to and didn't have to worry about it. The buttons are super light to press, and you literally just press a button and you get an immediate shift. There's no chance of throwing the shifter too far and over shifting halfway into a different gear like you can possibly do with a cable actuated shifter. There's also a little paddle on the back of the shifter which SRAM calls the quote-unquote sprint paddle to nudge the top button from the backside. This comes in handy if you're out of the saddle and sprinting and want to keep your hands on the grips. The controller also has the same rating from the elements as the derailleur does, so there is no worry to ride this in any weather condition or spray this bad boy down with a hose. I did want to point out that the X01 and X01 controllers are the exact same no matter which group set you go with. Now on to one super obvious perk with a wireless drivetrain is that you have less cables cluttering your cockpit. This makes for a quieter ride without cables slapping around, and overall it just looks awesome. I'm still running a cable actuated Fox transfer post, and this clean cockpit goes next level with the AXS reverb, leaving you with only 2 brake hoses. A wireless electronic drivetrain might seem like it's going to just overcomplicate things, but honestly, AXS, in my opinion, simplifies drivetrain installation. All you have to do is bolt on the derailleur and controller, size your chain with the included B-tension tool, set your limits, pair the controller to the derailleur by pressing the setup buttons on them, and then use the optional phone app to further customize how your controller moves the derailleur. No running internal cables and no precise knowledge of cable tension needed. To adjust the quote-unquote cable tension, you just need to press the button on the bottom of the controller and click the shift button towards the way you need to slightly move the derailleur to get things perfect, and boom, you're all done. Set it and forget it. You can seriously cut down time with a new bike build if you use the AXS drivetrain and the reverb, since you don't have to run any hoses or cables internally through the frame. Plus, without additional internal cables, you'll also skip having any noise from cables smacking the inside of your frame. Yes, there is a chance that your battery power can run out, but don't worry, there's not a huge chance that you're going to be stranded in the backcountry eating tree bark and like living with a pack of wolves or some crazy worst case scenario that everyone can think of in the comments. I've been running this stuff for several months now, and honestly, this is not even a worry of mine. Now, there is a little bit of a learning curve when switching from a cable actuated drivetrain to an electronic one, but once you've got things dialed, then you're just good to go. I did run out of battery power one time, but luckily I was at the top of a hill after climbing, so all I had to do was just ride down back to the van. This was my fault because I was riding this thing for months and I didn't check my battery power, so that's on me. So then I went back to the shop, charged up my battery, and the next day I headed out for a ride. I got to the trailhead to go pedal up, and god damn it, I forgot to put my battery back on the derailleur. This again is also my fault because I didn't put the battery back on the derailleur. It's not the drivetrain's fault. But after that happened, I learned my lesson, kind of like when I was a little kid and I stuck a butter knife in the socket. I learned that I should probably never do that again. But since that first mistake, my brain has not forgotten to check in with the battery life and charge it when need be. Battery life with the derailleur battery, which is also the same as the reverb AXS battery, is rated for about 20 to 25 hours of riding. I do feel that over the summer when I was riding a lot, I actually didn't charge this for probably about 50 hours of riding, but a lot of that was riding bike park when I was shifting a lot less. Charge time on the AXS batteries is super fast at only an hour, so I would say about every once a week, just check your battery life. Simply press the button on the derailleur, and if the light is green, you're charged up good, but if the light is red, then you're ready for a charging. And then probably once a month of riding, charge the battery while you're eating breakfast and you're good to go. So if you are going on a super long ride or doing like some bike packing or something like that, just grab a spare battery. They only weigh 25 grams, which is nothing. Toss that in your pocket and you'll be ready for the long haul. Also, if you do run the reverb AXS dropper post, the same battery is used on the derailleur and the dropper post, so you can switch them back and forth and get you back to shifting. The controller uses a CR2032 button battery, which is used in a lot of common household things like watches, and the battery life for the controller is rated at 2 years, so there's really no need to worry about running out of battery with your controller. Overall, I'm pretty dang stoked on SRAM's wireless AXS drivetrain. My cockpit is less cluttered, my bike is more quiet, and it shifts even smoother than before. An AXS group set is also slightly lighter than the mechanical drivetrains, but I don't really think that this is one of the main advantages of going AXS. Do I recommend going AXS? Yes, if you can afford it. Luckily, SRAM offers 2 different ways ways to go AXS depending on your budget. You can buy complete X01 group sets with a crank and all that for $2,000, or the X01 drivetrain with the crank and everything for $1,900. That might seem like a ton of money for a drivetrain, which it is, but you can also just get the SRAM AXS Upgrade Kit. The AXS Upgrade Kit is $1,000 in either XX1 or X01, in which you get a derailleur, controller, battery charger, and B-tension tool, making the upgrade half price compared to the complete group. Also take note that the SRAM AXS Eagle components are completely compatible with any components from the SRAM Eagle family tree. So if you do have a stock bike build with a GX Eagle component group set, then you can just get the upgrade kit and continue using your current cassette, chainring, and crank. If you would like to go AXS, click this link right here, go right over to our website at thelostco.com. Pick up whatever parts you'd like to get, and we'll give you free shipping in the USA. What do you guys think about AXS? Come up with something original. Don't say it's overpriced and say that your battery's gonna die. Come up with something cool. Ask me some questions in the comments below. And until next time, happy trails, yo.